Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. We're bringing the best and the brightest in the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Folks, my guest today is Michelle Mace-Corinne, a combat veteran, former fighter pilot, and the fourth woman to ever fly lead solo for the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds. They fly over my house. We're right by the beach every year for Memorial Day. It's pretty awesome. And these days, she's on a mission to help people flip fear on its head and take bold action. She's the author of Flipside, How to Invert Your Perspective and Turn Fear into Your Superpower, a book packed with lessons from the cockpit about courage and confidence, a LinkedIn top voice with content reaching millions. Michelle blends fighter pilot grit with humor and heart. She's also written best-selling children's books, appeared on The Kelly Clarkson Show and CBS Evening News, and inspired audiences, companies from Microsoft to SpaceX. We have a lot to get into, but Michelle's mission is simple: to help us turn fear into fuel and lead with boldness. Let's do it. Michelle, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I love that you've seen the Jones Beach Air show. That's a good one.
Well, what's really cool about that, so we're right there on the south shore of Long Island. We're on the water there, a little town called Merrick. And when you guys warm up, usually a day or two before, it's right over our house.
Yeah.
Literally, so we sit in our backyard, and we have no one behind us. We have the schoolyard behind us, and we'll sit out there for the whole time and just watch. And we have the free air show.
That's the way to do it, because traffic for that one is brutal.
Brutal isn't even the word; it's horrific.
Yeah. They shut down the island because they reached max capacity of cars. That's what we were told. Like no more people allowed. We are full of
no. And then we also don't have FOMO. We don't have to go down to Jones Beach and watch it. We could just sit in our backyard. And if anybody who has not experienced the volume level of these jets flying, how high are you when you guys are doing the practice runs there?
So when we're at our target altitude for the actual maneuver, we're at 150 feet. So it depends exactly where you're located. That's the lowest we would be, but it could be anywhere between that and about 500 feet as we're descending down in preparation for a maneuver.
And
it's really low. Yeah,
you feel it in your bones. We love it, and the kids love it too. So it's a highlight there. So let's get into it. I mean, you have a fascinating background here. Growing up in a small town in Wisconsin. Sorry, we're just joking about that.
Yeah.
And eventually, where you are now, flying F-16s and an author at that point. But I'm really curious, if you don't mind me asking, Michelle, what did your parents do for a living?
Yeah. So like you said, I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, about 400 people, like north central rural area, more cows than people for sure. So it's not even a joke. It's just serious, but that gives you some context, right? Lots of farms. My dad was a logger, and then he drove a logging truck, like hauling timber.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom worked for Girl Scouts as like a paid employee. She did their marketing for the local Girl Scout council. So very blue collar, Midwest. Yeah, not a super glamorous upbringing, but I think some work ethic came from that.
Well, you see it in your mom and your dad, and I think that's at the core. And my wife and I talk about it all the time. We want our kids to really see that, how mom and dad bust their ass.
Yeah.
To all these fun things that you have, all these little boo-boos, all these, summer camp, that comes at a cost, right? That comes in, and you see it from your parents, and they put the work ethic in, and hopefully that resonates with them, when we look down the line at legacy and what we leave with our kids, right?
Yeah, and I've talked a lot about that with my parents in the last few years as I was, digging into writing a book. You end up reflecting on so many things at a deeper level than you have in the past, and just thinking about why I am the way that I am, because people are like, you went and did this super exceptional thing. Like, what were your parents like? And they will get asked that as well if they're at a speaking event or at a Thunderbird show. People will be like, how'd you raise your daughter to go do something like that? And we came from very humble means, but I was well aware that they prioritized exposing me to things I was interested in, no matter what they were. And I went through phases of I'm going to be an archaeologist. I'm going to be an FBI agent. I'm going to be a movie producer. And every single one of those, I would end up signed up for a summer camp the next summer that was at one of the universities in Wisconsin or in Minnesota that was about that exact topic. And so they made it a priority to use the little bit of resources they did have to just let me explore those things.
Isn't that what it's about too? Especially when kids are at a younger age, you want to nurture their interests and see what takes, right? See what they grasp onto. My daughter would dance, my son with baseball now, and then you find those little niche things, whether it be science, and you find those, programs during the holidays. But with you and looking back on it now, where was that first inkling that you wanted to fly jet planes?
Later than most people expect. So I was in high school, and I'd always been a good student. I was, a little bit of a perfectionist, just I liked to set goals and achieve them, so getting an A was, like, a very desirable thing for me personally. So I have a good GPA, and my parents did not have a college fund for me,
Mm,
so I'm maybe, like, a sophomore or junior, and they're like, "Hey, where do you wanna go to school? Like, let's look at scholarship opportunities." As we did that, my dad suggested ROTC, and
mm.
I had no knowledge on the military. I, like, didn't grow up in a military family, my small town wasn't near any bases, and so we started looking at it, and I was like, "Well, I wanna leave my small town. I want adventure. I want excitement." I've always been a little bit of a thrill seeker. I loved roller coasters growing up, just, like, being outside, exploring. So I'm like, maybe Air Force ROTC would be a
Mm.
good fit. But at that point, I was still on my phase of wanting to be an FBI agent. So I went to college as a criminal justice major, planning on getting school paid for on an ROTC scholarship, which I did, but then doing 4 years on active duty to pay that time back, doing, like, special investigations or something like that, and then going out and trying to become an FBI agent. But
Ambitious.
halfway yeah, right. I've never had, like, chill aspirations, I
No.
would say. I mean, kicking doors down sounded fun, I guess.
FBI,
Uh,
open up.
yeah, right? I think I people are like, "Why the FBI?" And I, like, half joking when I say this, I loved the X-Files growing up.
Sculler, Mullet. What were the names?
Scully and
Yeah.
Mulder? Yeah,
Yes,
I think.
something like that. I butchered
Sometimes I
that one, but yeah,
mix
you get
their
it.
names up too. But I was like, obviously the most accurate representation of what the FBI actually does ever, right? Like finding aliens, totally. But then I ended up seeing 2 jets take off in full afterburner
Mhm.
up close halfway through college when we visited a base, and I was just like,
Whoa.
"Hold the phone, like, forget the FBI, let's do that."
It's so interesting too, and keep me straight here, but aren't most jet fighter pilots like these are kids who grew up with that ambition like early on, or they had in their family or something?
A
Like,
lot of them, definitely not all of them, but I would say that's very common. A lot had parents that were in the military. A lot had parents that were in aviation. A lot
right.
started flying, in high school. They might have been taking flying lessons in a Cessna or something like that, or they went to an air show when they were a little kid and have wanted to be a fighter pilot since they were 5 years old. That is a very common story.
So what were your parents' reaction when you told them that you wanted to be a fighter pilot?
I don't think they were that surprised.
Huh.
Like, I think I
Oh,
had come
okay.
up with so many different things. They're just like,
Go for it.
"Okay, cool, sounds good." And then when I actually made it happen, not that they were shocked because, like I said, I've always been really ambitious and driven, but I think they're like, "Oh, giddy up. Like, now she's actually doing a job that's objectively dangerous." Like,
Wow.
we're super proud of her, but also it's our daughter. So I know they were a little bit worried at different points.
So you talk a lot about in the book, and we'll get to this point in a little bit, about facing fear, when you were starting the process of and we'll get into this a little bit that you don't just jump into the cockpit and fly. There's a whole
Yeah.
process of applying for flight school and various tests that you have to go through. But was there any fear that like really tied back to your childhood that you had to overcome before you even went down this path?
I was always really shy and introverted. So it was never, like, the risk of physical harm that scared me, right? I wasn't, like, worried about it being a dangerous job. I was worried about failing, about letting people down, about judgment, about, shame and embarrassment if I went after this big thing and then
Mm,
didn't achieve it. And then also in the military, being extroverted is rewarded, especially as you get into a career like being a fighter pilot. There's all the cliches from Top Gun that are not really true, but they are true to a certain extent. Like the type A, assertive, outspoken personality tends to do well, and that is the
mm.
opposite of what I naturally am.
So it's so interesting too. So for anyone out there who's not familiar, walk us through high level. What is the process to even raise your hand and say this is something I want to do after basic training, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so you have to commission as an officer. So I did that through Air Force ROTC. You could do that through the Air Force Academy, or there's officer training school. So in some way, you get your 4-year degree and you commission. So that's step one. Towards the end of your time in ROTC, for example, in my case, they're like, "Hey, who here wants to compete for a pilot slot?" So you throw your name in the hat. They look at your GPA, your physical fitness, your leadership within the ROTC, like cadet wing program, and they rack and stack everyone in class
Mm.
ranking. And they're like, "Cool, we have 5 spots available. We have 7 people that want it. Here's the top 5. Boom, you're going to pilot training." So that part's not, I wouldn't say that's too difficult to get. Like most people, as long as they have a decent GPA, are able to do that. Then you get to pilot training, and that's where it gets a lot harder because I didn't want to be just an Air Force pilot. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And so you go
Right.
through years of training. One of those is 1 year of specific undergraduate pilot training. And in that program, you're learning to fly for the first time. You're starting in a prop airplane, advancing to a jet trainer, and then hopefully getting
Mm,
the aircraft you want at the end.
And you're competing against, as you mentioned before, folks who have flown their whole life, who had a huge competitive advantage.
Out the gate, they definitely do. You could see that they were very comfortable with the general things, everything from how taxiways are labeled to how to talk
Mm,
on the radio to how airspace works. Like, I just had no concept of any of that stuff. And so I
it's a
think the
learning curve.
people oh, it was so steep at first. I think the people that had already had their private pilot's license or at least some exposure to the basics of aviation, combined with an engineering degree
Mm.
where they understood how the systems in the jet worked, they definitely had an
Because
advantage, but it leveled out eventually.
because you also obviously have to learn how the planes actually work and be able to
Yeah,
inspect and visually say something's not right over there, like almost to the point of the mechanics, right?
absolutely. So that was one of the
You're
hardest things for
responsible for the
me.
plane. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're airborne, especially because most of the things that I was flying were single seat, so I'm the only one in that cockpit, and a light comes on, and let's say it's the hydraulic system, I need to understand how the hydraulics work so I know
Hmm.
what systems are not working correctly and, like, what my backup options are, or the electric system, right? I need to understand the generator versus the battery, and all of that was brand new, so it was
So
drinking
much to
from a
learn.
fire hose.
That's incredible. Take us to your first solo flight. Not even on a fighter jet. Like even the
Yep.
first Cessna. On like how were you scared or did the adrenaline just kick in and override?
I think the adrenaline kicked in. I think fear is mixed in there, but that's not like the primary
Hmm.
feeling I remember. It was in a DA-20, which is this tiny little prop airplane, cruises along at like 80 knots, super light and small. And it was in Pueblo, Colorado. And it was, all of my class was kind of soloing that week. So it was really exciting because you're seeing your friends go and then you're studying for
Yeah, of
your
course.
flight. And it's super exciting because it's this big milestone, but you don't even have time to stop and smell the roses because you're just like, okay, I can't mess this up, right? Like, this is all on me. What do I do next? Who do I talk to? What am I supposed to say? And so you're very task oriented that entire flight. And so I think that
You're
allows you to
focused.
compartmentalize the fear and the excitement.
That's so interesting too. And we're fast forwarding a bit here too. And you start to weed out, the folks that could really fly, the men and women that could really fly and do this. And now you're at a point where you're in that first, fighter jet. But along that way, was there did you feel any, negative energy for being a woman in this space?
Yes, it didn't happen as often or as early as people might think. When I first decided I wanted to be a fighter pilot, it was just like, this is my new dream. Like, it
Hmm.
doesn't matter that I'm a woman. Who cares? Like, this is what I'm going to go do.
Right.
And then I get to pilot training. And for the most part, I am assimilated into my class. They're my closest friends. It's work hard, play hard. There's 25 of us. I'm the only woman in the class. And I'm doing well in the program. And so I think that definitely
Respect.
helped,
You earn the
right? Like
respect.
I'm gaining credibility because the competence is showing. There was like one interaction that I don't hold this against this person at all because I realize the pressure we were all under, but it is burned into my mind as like the first time it was really highlighted to me in a negative way, my gender. And so I'm studying for my last check ride in the program. We know that of a class of 25, there's likely going to be between 1 and 3 fighter jets available. So you need to be top of the class. And there was a guy that had just crushed it the entire program that was clearly first. We all knew he was first. So
Right.
if
It's a
there's one,
valedictorian. We know it. He's a
yeah,
big
he's
nerd. He's
got
going
it.
to get it. He's got it. He's
Yeah.
the ace. Yep.
So we got that. And it was between me and this other guy for the second spot. And like, because you're generally keeping track of how people are doing.
Of
So you
course.
know who the
It's
strong
competitive.
swimmers are. And so we know that, but we're also friends. And so we're studying together for this last check ride. And this, which is like a big airborne test. And we had 4 of them throughout the program. And they put a lot of weight on how your class ranking came out. And so we know this final check ride is going to determine who is second and who is third, which would very likely determine who goes and flies a fighter jet versus who goes and flies like a cargo or air refueling aircraft.
Boring.
And
No,
like we
no, they're
both
still
want to be
fun.
fighter pilots, right? So like that, not to downplay, like the C-17 does some badass stuff, but we want to
Right.
be fighter pilots. And so we're studying and we're quizzing each other. And I think he got a couple questions wrong and he was getting frustrated.
Mm.
And I'm sitting there, so I'm his direct competition, so I'm an easy target. So he says, "I don't even know why I'm wasting my time. They're just gonna give you a fighter to check the box."
Ooh.
And I'd like never
Mm.
that had never even occurred to me. Like the whole DEI thing was not just it wasn't a conversation that was happening then like it is now. So it didn't even occur to my 22-year-old brain or whatever that that is even a thing. And it's not a thing in that world. But it didn't even occur to me that people might think that that was a thing. And so I was so taken aback. I didn't defend myself. I don't even think I said anything. I think I
You
just was like, and went on to the next question.
and did that really suppress once you earned your wings and were flying the F-16s and the fighter jets?
I don't think anyone ever my direct peers that I was working with on a day-to-day basis never said anything that would question my competence. Like, they were never like, "You're" like, they lowered standards to get you here, or "Clearly you don't belong here." But it was more just the culture of, like, the locker room type talk,
Yeah. I could see
and
that.
that, like, it wasn't directed at me, but when you're trying to belong in a team that requires such a high level of trust, like, we're trusting each other with our lives airborne, and these are my closest friends. I'm living in Japan at this point. That's where our squadron is. So this is not just my peers. These are my friends. These are my neighbors. This is my whole community.
It's your whole
I do
life
not
at that
speak
moment.
Japanese. Yeah, exactly. So these people are very important to me. And the fact that they respect me or don't respect me and that they feel like I'm part of the team is very important to me. And the job is really difficult. So you combine this really objectively hard career where you're going to suck at it at first for quite a while, like years. You're not good at it for a long time.
You have to put the time in. You're not just gonna get up there and be a top fighter pilot.
No, it's reps. It takes a long
It's
time to get good at it. The tactics are very complicated. Everything's happening very fast. And coming from my background of, doing well at things, working really hard, but getting a college scholarship, getting that fighter jet, I kind of had created this persona or like identity where I was the high achiever that did well. And so when I get there and I struggle at a very average level for a new fighter pilot, that
mm,
like is a identity crisis for myself, right? Like it kind of shakes my confidence. And then you
interesting.
combine that with feeling like I don't belong because it's being like women in general are being highlighted a lot and everyone looks at me and waits for my reaction anytime that happens.
They look over at you.
And you're just like, guys, I just want to fit in here. Like, don't throw me under the bus in this moment where all this responsibility falls on me. If I laugh and go along with it, oh, now I'm cool. If I'm like offended because what you said is objectively gross, now I'm like causing problems and rocking the boat. And if I go along with it and laugh because I know that's the easiest answer, but I don't feel like that's true to myself, now I have this internal battle. And I also feel like I'm misrepresenting the women that are going to follow in my footsteps.
Well, I'm just pausing on that to reflect. So well said that it's not cut and dry. It's not a black and white answer, and it's on the moment how you can reflect on that. And I mean, kind of spin that a little bit. Like you talk about like many people picture fighter pilots as fearless, but you've spoken about imposter syndrome and panic under the oxygen mask. How
Yep.
did you reconcile that image with your reality?
It was a struggle for a long time. I think that entire first assignment in Japan, which was 3 years long, which is a long time,
Mm,
to have this, like, internal tug of war going on. So much of it was, yes, cutting my teeth as a brand new fighter pilot, being bad and then slowly getting better as we all do, and I mean, I became a flight lead. I was doing fine. I wasn't actually struggling with the skills in the jet. But then on the inside, this, like, identity crisis that I'm going through of, "Oh, this is, like, a lot longer to get good at than I expected from myself," along with, "What is my reputation in this community
mm.
going to be?" And everything I say and do is a little data point to my peers of whether I'm cool or not, whether I'm, like, causing problems by being a woman in this world or not, and it's just so much spotlight and pressure on yourself, and I will be the first one to say much of it was self-inflicted, right? Like, a lot of it is that spotlight effect where I feel like everyone is looking at me, even though they're
But they're
not.
not. They're not. Yeah.
They're not, but those like small data points when they were all looking at me, when I would see it happen, that just fueled that idea, right? That I felt so much under a microscope.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, and I think that's so much of the good of what you're doing right now. But before we move on to what you're up to now, I got to ask you, how did you earn the call name Mace? How did you earn the nickname?
Yes, everyone wants to know that. So fighter pilot call signs,
I mean,
we
I
all
have to
have
ask. I
them.
have to ask. I mean,
Right.
who's listening to this podcast and I'm introducing you as Mason? Like, where the hell did you get that name from?
Yeah, I just had really cool parents. They were super creative with their naming. Uh, no, so fighter pilot call signs, they are not chosen by you. They're given to you based on usually something dumb that you did, a mistake
Right.
that you made as a young pilot. It's a little bit of a rite of passage to get one, right?
Goose, right? I mean, we have the name. Yes.
Right. I wish that Top Gun gave you the backstory to how everyone got theirs, but like we just don't know. They kind of associate them with their personalities. But ours are, generally something dumb you did, usually airborne, not ours. Some people had some stupid things they did on the ground, but mine was a flight, and it was my second flight in Japan. So I had first combat squadron, just came from training, show up. I've been in country for maybe 2 weeks. I'm still jet lagged, probably.
Yeah, you're figuring it out. You're getting your feet you grounded, right?
I'm like, I still don't know how to drive on the wrong side of the road here. Like, I'm just trying to not get in a car accident on my way to work.
I can fly a fighter jet, but I can't drive on the other side of the road.
Yeah,
Mind-boggling.
yeah. Just say Heine on the liney. That'll get you to the right side of the road every
Heine on
time.
the lining. That works for the UK as well. Okay, got
Yep,
it. All right.
yep. File that one away. You never know when you'll need it.
Put
But
that in
I
my
get
random
there.
piece of information. Useless
Yeah,
information.
that's like one of the things you're
Useful
briefed.
information. That's
It
useful.
is.
Random
Someone's
useful, not random useless. That's random useful. Heine on the
someone
lining in the UK and in Japan. Yep, got it.
someone's
Check.
gonna remember that, and they're gonna be like, "Okay, I
That's
almost
actually
heard
what I'm
the
going to
wrong
name
thing."
this title of this podcast. Heine on the
Perfect.
lining.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good clickbait. I like it. Yeah, so I get there, and my second flight is dogfighting training. So people have a general concept of dogfighting, thanks again to Top Gun. So one jet's fighting another one. My whole goal is to gun the other aircraft. Again, we do not have live weapons loaded up. It's my instructor in the other jet
Is it
training flight.
just like lasers or something?
We just are looking at the symbols in
Okay.
our heads-up display. So there's no like sensor, like laser
It's
going
not like
between
laser
them.
tag, right?
No. It's our judgment of like, okay, it looks like I had a good shot there. I'm going to call the kill. And then we would go in the debrief and we would analyze it. And if you called a kill and it wasn't valid, you got poo-pooed on. Not literally. So I'm out there, and I'd done this, a few times in F-16 training. But again, I'm brand new. The jet is flying at like 500 miles an hour. Your brain processing, it just takes time and repetition for it to catch up to be able to make decisions that quickly. So again, you're really bad at first. And so long story short, what happened is these like very beginner habit patterns that I had created from training, I apply them in this situation, but this situation is a little bit different. And I'm too young and dumb to realize the differences. And they basically were that the engine I was flying in Japan was quite a bit more powerful than the engines that the F-16s had that I had learned to train on. There's some different variants, and they just happen to have a more powerful variant. And also, it was December in northern Japan. It's like 30 degrees outside. And I had learned to fly in Arizona in the summer. So jet engines perform a lot better in cold air.
Interesting. Yeah.
So combine those two things, and
You're
I am
pretty fast
like,
machine.
I'm on a rocket. I already know I'm flying a rocket, but I'm on like a leveled up rocket, and I don't realize that. So I'm like, cool. I'm just going to light the afterburner, which, max power, flame coming out the back of the jet. I'm just going to leave the throttle there because I have so many things I need to worry about. If I can put that where it needs to go and be like, okay, check. Don't need to think about that anymore. Great, because my brain needs all the processing for other stuff. That worked great in Arizona. That does not work great here when the jet has substantially more thrust.
Oh, no.
So I do that. I accidentally go supersonic, so faster than the speed of sound. I don't even realize that I am supersonic because, contrary to popular belief, nothing exciting happens inside the cockpit when you go supersonic. You don't hear a sonic boom or anything. Just your speed goes from 0.99 Mach to 1.0 Mach and then continues to tick up. So I don't recognize that. So then when I roll the jet and I pull back on the stick to try to point at my instructor in order to gun him, I'm going way, way faster than I should be, which means I can't win because I can't turn tight enough to point at him. It's like trying to drive your car at 60 miles an hour and make a turn that you need to make at 30 miles an hour.
It's not going to work.
Not going to work. Physics says no. So A, I'm not going to win. It's a tactical execution error. B, because the jet has so much energy, I hit 9 Gs, which is 9 times the force of gravity in the pull. So I'm doing my little G strain. I'm fighting to stay awake because, again, thank you, Top Gun, for the reference. You can pass out under G forces when the blood gets forced out of your brain. It's not uncommon for the F-16 to hit 9 Gs, but usually it's very brief, maybe like 5 seconds, 7 seconds.
So your body doesn't even have a time to, in 5 seconds, to completely go under. Yeah.
You can push through it.
Yeah.
And especially with practice, you get pretty good at it. Your body gets used to it. But again, I'm young and I'm new and my G strain's not that good and my body's not conditioned for it yet. So I hit 9 Gs. I'm pulling. I'm doing the strain against it. And I just keep pulling. And I'm like, why can I not point at him? Again, because I don't realize how fast I'm going. So I'm just pulling and pulling. And I'm like, why is this so difficult? I start to get gray out. Then I start to get tunnel vision. And then I have full light loss. And that means I'm like blackout, but I'm still conscious. Like I can hear, I'm still aware of things, but I have no vision. Vision's gone.
Do you have any memory of being completely scared at that point, or you just had no ability to be scared?
Fear wasn't even on the table.
It's not even an option to choose from.
It was so important to me that I prove that I deserve to be there and that I like win this fight, that I'm not even concerned that I am on the knife's edge of being unconscious in a fighter jet, going the speed of sound, and I'm the only person in the cockpit. And there have been other fighter pilots who have G-locked, not woken up and hit the ground. Like it can have catastrophic results. And so the risk assessment in that moment is so dumb. But I'm so focused again on proving I deserve to be there that I want to win that fight and do the right thing tactically airborne. And that is my number one priority over anything.
So you black out. And so where does the name come from?
Yes. No, I get into that because you're like, cool story. But
no,
I'm so confused. So my instructor,
you gotta land the plane.
Right? My instructor luckily realizes that something's not right. He calls on the radio to end the fight. I hear that, pull back the throttle, G's drop, vision comes back in the game, but very confused what happened, like disoriented. I'm like, what the hell? That was way harder than it should be. Anyway, so fast forward 3 months later, they're having my naming where they all share stories of dumb stuff I've done over the last 4 months. And my instructor tells the story about how I went supersonic at the turn circle entry, which is just the maneuver we were doing during the dogfight. And so they named me Mace, which stands for Mach at Circle Entry.
That's not what I had on my bingo card. I thought because maybe they got sprayed with mace and right, that's they were going with that. But it's a lot deeper than that. Right? We're not going to make it so obvious. I bet some of the call names are obvious.
Some are for sure. Yeah,
but that's a cool one though. It could be a lot worse.
It could be a lot more embarrassing, I think. Like you have people that are named after like pooping themselves in the aircraft or something like that.
I'm not even going to get into that line of questioning. What do you do if you have to go to the bathroom on the plane? I think you just kind of hold it for the most part. I'm sure. There's ways around it. But so now you're a fighter pilot. Did you see active combat?
Yeah, I deployed once to Afghanistan.
What's that level of pressure like? Where now it's not a game. Where lives are really there's a good chance that you may have to do what you're there to do.
It's interesting because I think it's twofold. Like part of you is really proud that you're finally doing the mission that you've been training for, right? Like you are representing the United States in like you're there to defend your country and you are there to do what you took an oath to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you're there to perform at the highest level with the highest stakes with this team that you've been training with for months to get ready for this deployment. And you're really at the top of your game. And all of that feels really good. And then you get out there and you're flying at night and it's chaotic on the ground and people are yelling on the radio and you need to execute in less than ideal circumstances in very little time. And I'd be lying if I said you're cool, calm, and collected. Like your heart rate's up. You're stressed. Your performance is not at its peak because of all of those factors, but you still have to execute at the same level. And to do it successfully is very rewarding. Like I think for me, it was highs and lows, but at the end, I felt very proud that I went and I did it. And it was a vote of confidence to myself, like, oh, you can do the mission in real life. And so that really helped give me some more confidence in the career field in general.
I mean, ultimately, that's what you train for, and every keep me straight here. I mean, every fighter pilot wants to see action. I mean, nobody wants to take lives in the heat of battle, but that's what you're there for. You're a soldier. I mean, that's what you do the job that you have to do.
Yeah, I know some fighter pilots just because of timing, they've never been on a deployment because right when their unit was going, they were moving to the next unit or
Mhm.
something like that, and it's, like, almost like a point of shame for them, right? They're like, I did a 20-year career and I trained the entire time." Like, I didn't actually like, if they get asked, like, "Where did you deploy?" and they don't have an answer, you can see that they're just like, "Oh, don't ask me that."
It's almost like a professional athlete, like spending an entire career not making it to the championship and even winning one. Like, if I'm
Yeah,
using some kind of analogy, you train your whole life for this, right? Like,
yeah.
that's what you're there for. So, you spend your career in the Air Force. When do the Thunderbirds come knocking? And what's that opportunity like? Is that like the All-Star game? Like, what is it? What is that level to be even invited to try out for the Thunderbirds at your level in the Air Force?
So, they don't invite you, you definitely have to be proactive and be like, "Okay, I'm
Oh, so it's an application
application."
process.
Yep,
It's
applications are
I thought it would
open.
be the other way where they're hand selecting.
No, and not everyone wants to fly for the Thunderbirds. Like, there's kind of 2 major paths at that timing in your career when you're pretty experienced.
Hmm,
You've probably been flying in combat squadrons for, I don't know, 5 to 7 years at that point. You've most likely deployed, you probably are an instructor, and you could either apply to the Thunderbirds, you could apply to weapons school, which is our version of Top Gun, or you could apply to test pilot school. Those are kinda like the 3 big programs or opportunities that people will do if
interesting.
they're ready to, like, do something challenging at
Yeah,
that point, and level up their career a little bit, so not everyone that hits that point wants to be a demo pilot. But you get an email that applications are open, and essentially it's this massive paper package that you have to submit of, like, every performance review,
oh,
every
geez.
physical fitness test, every check ride in the air, like, a statement about why you wanna do it, letters of recommendation. I think mine was, like, 45 pages or something
Unbelievable.
like
If you thought
that.
applying to colleges was hard, I mean, this is next level over here.
Yeah, yeah, it's I would say it's kinda comparable to, like, the high level college applications. So it's a big commitment to apply, and then the team gets anywhere from, I don't know, 30, 40 applications for 3 spots, and there's basically every other year, they're refilling the spots because it's a 2-year assignment. So every year, 3 spots are open because 6 of us fly in the show. And so I apply, get called out for semifinalist interviews. They bring out 12 of us for 3 spots. We go on the road with the team for an air show. We do some interviews with them. A lot of it is, like, social, being like, "Could I spend
Interesting.
250 days on the road with this person?"
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not combat. It's what's the word they call it? It's demonstration.
Yeah, and so there's
But the
this
risk is still high. I mean, it's even higher.
oh,
You're flying so
even
tight. I mean, I
higher.
watched them, as I mentioned, above my house, and they're so. How close are you in some of those formations to give people reference?
The closest the jets get is 18 inches.
That is, and the wind could even just.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's no joke. It is for sure more dangerous than most combat operations. Like, the margin of error is just so small. You're very close to the ground, you're very fast, you're very close to another jet. Like, your timing has to be super precise to not hit one another. It
how do
is
you? It
stressful.
I mean, walk us through what that's like because it's choreographed, and, like, you walk through like, is there a ground walkthrough? What is that like for these routines until you get up in the air? Like, what's the prep?
Yeah, so, I mean, it starts during training season when air shows aren't going on, which is essentially, like, November through March. And that is when the pilots are here in Las Vegas, based at Nellis Air Force Base, and you're flying anywhere from 6 to 10 times a week, and you're going out for an hour training flight at a time, and you don't start in close formation. It'd be like one
Kinda
jet, the leader going out, and then you are brand new, and you're gonna go out and try to follow them through a loop and a roll,
follow
and
the
you're gonna
leader. You start with follow the leader.
yeah, and you're gonna be like, you're gonna be so far out of position, you're gonna be super frustrated because 'cause you're already an experienced fighter pilot, but you've never done that type of flying, and so it is very humbling. You gotta start over as a beginner.
I was about to say, did it really feel like you were starting over again? Like you were back to beginner mindset?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was, like, it's a shock to your system because you finally found your footing and your confidence at that point in your career for most people, and then you get there and you're like, "How hard could it be?" It's really hard, turns out. So it takes like, the first entire show season, you feel like you're still learning, You're still refining. And then finally, by your second year on the team, I think you're pretty
And
comfortable. But yeah, it's tough.
and you mentioned the social element. I can only assume that's also because you have to build the trust. I mean, you're
Yes.
trusting these people even more so than when you're in active flight, like active duty, with the trust because you are so close and these maneuvers are so intense.
Yeah, there's two things. So it's the personalities between the pilots ourselves, and it is that trust, right? It's knowing that that person has your back, that they're there for the right reasons, that they like when they do mess up, they're going to fess up to it, and their ego's not going to get in the way of that because that's dangerous. But then it's the public facing side too. Like you want to know, you could have the best pilot, super humble, learns really fast, a great teammate, but if they're really awkward and uncomfortable, like,
Mm.
they can't put together a sentence on camera for a media interview, or they're, like, awkward with interacting with fans in the autograph line, that is a massive part of the job as well.
You know what I just realized? And I'll send you a picture of this when I get home later. My son has a picture from one of the recent air shows of one of the pilots that someone gave him autographed on his door in his closet. I just realized. I'm
Oh,
like, you
nice.
guys are like the rock stars, like the Harlem Globetrotters out there of flying there. So talk about that. Well, I want to double back to something really important, and I think this will resonate through your book too. How important accountability is,
Yeah.
right? And that self-awareness and accountability together. Talk a little bit about how even more critical is in this line of work.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that is just drilled into your head as a young fighter pilot. They're like, "We are gonna make mistakes all the time. We're never gonna have a perfect flight, even if that means we're 10 feet off of altitude," which just inherently happens all the time, right? Like, the jet's moving around. It's never gonna be perfect. That is okay. What is not okay is if you try to hide your mistakes in the debrief. That will, like, get you kicked out of this program in a heartbeat, because making the mistakes, acceptable, you're learning. Hiding the mistakes, now we know that you're lacking the humility, you have an ego problem, you're not gonna take instruction well, you're not trainable, and you're
Mm,
dangerous. And so that is just, like, drilled into you at first, and when you're new, it is hard to adhere to that. You mess something up that no one else saw airborne, like, you only saw it in your own jet, say your, like, airspeed was off or something when you did a simulated weapons release and you were outside of the parameters that's allowed for that weapon. Maybe no one else saw it,
you
but
did.
you saw it airborne, you're like, "Oh, shit."
Yeah.
If you don't have the accountability to talk, like, to your instructor about that in the debrief when you get to that part of the flight where you're reviewing the tapes and you're like, "Oh, stop there. Look, I'm at overspeed." You're not gonna get techniques from that person who's more experienced than you on how to keep that from happening again, and so you're not gonna
Critical.
learn as quickly. And so
Th-
that is taken to the extreme on the Thunderbirds as well.
yeah, I mean, and it has to be. I mean, it really has to be. So let's fast forward a bit, and you left what many call, a dream job when with the Thunderbirds. What was that internal dialogue that told you it was time to walk away?
Yeah, it was really 3 things had changed. So I had met my husband, when my first airshow season here in Vegas, and he has a son, so I now had a stepson. So that changes your calculus of family
Mm,
decisions. Being at the beck and call of the military and moving all over the world with no say in it is actually really fun when you're in your 20s and probably
right.
early
But
30s.
when you want some stability in your life and you have a family,
It changes the decision making. Like, right, the priorities had shifted there. So that was
completely.
one thing that was like, okay, this is now part of the calculus. Second is 9 Gs, 9 times the force of your gravity on your body multiple times a week for, I mean, a decade plus, but especially the 3 years with the Thunderbirds, such high G flying. My body was so beat up. I was in constant back pain.
Can't
It
even
just
imagine.
it just became pretty obvious that wear and tear was happening, and I didn't know if it was really worth it to continue to do that, and because all of my hobbies are outdoor active things, I didn't wanna be 50 and, like, be
Crippled. Yeah.
crippled by back pain.
Yeah. I mean, I drive 5 hours and my back is killing me. I can't even imagine, and
Yes,
I'm sitting in my Jeep. I'm like, I can't even imagine that. But did you feel like, did you feel like your sense of identity shift once you took off the uniform? Like, did you feel that something was missing or were you good?
I didn't, and I
I'm
think
sure it took
it's
time.
because of the 3rd reason, which is I feel like my purpose shifted during that 3 years with the Thunderbirds. I came in, the flying was exciting, the mission was also rewarding, but the longer I did the flying, the more routine it became, which sounds crazy to say that type of flying becomes routine, but I'd done it, thousands of times. What I really loved about the job were those unique interactions I got to have with people where I could see the inspiration happen in real time, which was especially true with like young women or girls, right? Like them getting to meet a Thunderbird pilot that looks like them, that just did this thing that seems superhero-esque,
I
to
love
like
it.
an 8-year-old, it can change what they see as possible for them in the world. And that was the coolest thing to do for people.
Getting the
And I wanted to
chills.
keep doing it.
That's so powerful. I'm literally getting the chills as you say that, right? Like the mission and the purpose. So let's talk about today's mission and let's talk about the flip side. First and foremost, who is this book for?
It is not for other pilots, and it is not only for other people in the military. When I think about the ideal reader, it is for the person who is struggling with that internal self-doubt, who's letting fear hold them back, who's about to maybe make a change or take a leap of faith or put themselves out there in a way that feels uncomfortable, whether that's a mom going back to work after being home with their kids, or that's putting your name in for a promotion, or it's leading people for the first time, or it's retiring, or it's a new grad. And so I don't even want to tie it to gender or age. It's really anyone who struggles with that internal inner critic, internal narrative that holds them back. And that is all of us at different points. And so the reception for the book, I have gotten pictures of an 18-year-old girl who sends me a selfie of her in the book and is like, I needed to read everything in here right now. I'm executing on what I read. And I'll get a same picture of a 70-year-old veteran who's like, I've kind of had an identity crisis since I retired, and I feel like I've lost my community, and I
Mm,
needed to read everything in this book. And that has been so cool to see it resonate across the board.
I love it. And I've been toying with the idea of a book. I've had quite the journey in the last year or two. And I think a lot like, what's the purpose of it? Who am I doing? Am I doing it for me? Is this, a vanity project? No, it's like, what could I share with the world based on my experience and just inspire others? So what did you learn about yourself in the process of writing this book?
It was eye-opening. It was very cathartic, I will say. I think that there was so much more that went on in the background and under the surface, and I think that's true for all of us, of like how small interactions impact us and stick with us, or how our confidence and our competence are related in the professional world, and all of those things. And I had to dig into that at a high level, but I think it was affirming that I made the right choice to leave what I was doing to do what I'm doing now, because I was giving keynote speeches and I was getting this great feedback, but I knew I had more to say. And so actually getting it into a book, getting it published and out into the mainstream and getting this feedback is affirmation that like what I do have to say is worth listening to. Because again, I'm not immune to imposter syndrome and self-doubt now. I just have a better perspective on it. And you better believe when I took off the uniform and decided that I was going to market myself as a keynote speaker, and I
It's a whole
get
new
in front
world.
of my very first corporate audience were investment leaders for the Royal Bank of Canada. I'm like, what the
How am I
hell
gonna, how
do
am I
I
gonna relate
know
to them?
about
Right.
this? Like, uh, these are
Well,
experienced professionals. Like, what do I know about this?
but people want to hear your story. I mean, you have a kick-ass job. I mean, I can only imagine it's like take your parent to work day, right? Like, here's my mom, she's a fighter pilot versus here's your dad, he's a fucking recruiter, right? Like there's a big like there's a big difference there, but we all have these stories to share and there's something in every profession. It doesn't matter
Yep.
if you're a fighter pilot or whatever you are. There's something to be inspired by. So, before we kind of wrap this one up here, like let's if you could share a practical tool that anyone can use tomorrow to really flip their perspective when it comes to like how when fear shows up.
Yeah. Oh man, there's a lot of them in the book. Try to pick one that's the most
Choose one that
useful.
maybe you haven't spoken about recently.
Yeah. Well, I briefly mentioned the inner critic, and I think that's a good one because it's going to resonate with everyone. And that is that negative talk track that we all have, right? Like, I'm going to put something out on social media. I'm going to redo my website, and I'm looking at the wording of how I'm marketing myself. And in my head, I have this negative inner critic that chimes in about, like, oh, does that sound arrogant? Oh, like, do you have the credibility to back that up?
Mm,
So, say that's my version right now. We all have that version of, oh, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm not experienced enough. Oh, I'm a woman. Women don't belong in that world. And it's, different versions at different points. So I run people through exercises of recognizing that, like giving awareness that that voice isn't, you can separate yourself from that voice. And when you separate it as this like other entity that's not your identity, that allows you to see it when it walks in the door and be like, okay, that is just my insecurities. That is just my past experiences. And that doesn't necessarily align with reality. Just because I'm thinking it doesn't mean it's fact. And then you go even a step further and you look at where that voice comes from. And I do a workshop around this, and people will find, like, when they sit down, they're like, what does this thing look like? What does it sound like? What does it say? When does it chime in? You're like, oh shit, that's the coach I had in high school who shamed me all the time that I wasn't good enough. And I'm 53 years old now, and it's still Mr. Smith's voice chiming in. Or it's my mom who had exceptionally high standards, or it's the mean girl at my first job. And for me, I realized it was an older, experienced, super tactical male fighter pilot. And it wasn't a specific person I knew. It was just this idea of the perfect fighter pilot that I would never be. And that voice was chiming in, and I was running my decisions through this filter. So it's just like they live rent-free in your head. And just like going through that exercise and gaining that perspective can change so much.
So, I mean, looking back, I mean, do you think that your relationship with fear has really been the biggest driver of your success?
It's evolved over time, for sure. Like,
what does it look like now?
Yeah, I let it call the shots early on. And again, it wasn't the fear of physical danger in the jet. It was that fear of failure, that fear of shame. Now I still get it. But when I hesitate, I'm like, wait, this decision point I'm at, like, what does this look like if it's wildly successful? What does it look like if the fear is right? If I epically fail, what does that look like? And most of the time I'm like, oh, A, it's not as bad once I say it out loud or write it down. But also, if that epic failure does happen, I have the resilience to deal with it.
So powerful.
And so I'm gonna, like, the rewards are huge. So I'm gonna roll the dice and give it a go and like get that perspective. And all of a sudden you're like, I'm gonna keep showing up. I'm gonna keep taking the shots. And that's what differentiates people that are successful.
Keep taking the shots. I mean, I preach that all the time. I just completed a very major health journey. I'm still going through it, but I reached a finish line there, and people say, like, how'd you keep doing it? You know, you kept doing things. And I said, I had to. I couldn't take my foot off the gas. I had to keep taking my shots. And it's the old cliche, you know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You have to keep taking the shots. So, Michelle, what's next for you? I mean, do you miss flying? I mean, what's next on the agenda? You have the book. You're a Thunderbird pilot. What's next?
I think, you know, it's now that I've had this process of writing the book, and it's a tool that lays these things that people can learn out in a very digestible way. It's only been out, when we're recording this, it only has been out for like a month.
Right. It's still pretty
a month
new.
later this week. So I'm still coming off of that, but the goal is to take that, combine it with the keynote speaking that I do, and like media opportunities, and maybe there'll be a podcast eventually, who knows, but figure out ways to get it to more people. Because I think it's like, I'm all about humility, but I really do think this book can change a lot of people's lives. And so I'm the driving force to make that happen. Like, as an author, you have a publisher and they do all their things, but you are the singular driving force to get your book in people's hands. And so that's really the focus right now.
I love it. Michelle, what's that single greatest piece of career advice that you received that you pay forward?
Yeah, it's about this idea that you're going to feel ready, right? Like, you're going to feel ready to apply to the Thunderbirds. You're going to feel ready to become an entrepreneur. And so the quote that I always leave people with is that the key to progress is having the courage to start something when you don't feel ready, but believing in yourself enough to know you will figure it out along the way. If you can keep that faith, the world's your oyster. Like, all the doors open.
I absolutely love that. I want to pause on that one. I want to hit the 30-second rewind button wherever you're listening to this podcast. Listen back to that one. And Michelle, last but not least, anyone who reads your book, anyone who even looks at the back cover of the book and sees your career background, your resume, like, damn, Michelle's successful. But Michelle, success, everyone defines success differently. At this stage of your life and career, Michelle Mace-Corinne, how do you define success?
For me at this point, it's about feeling in my heart that I am impacting people in a positive way, while I'm also not losing myself to burnout and the hustle and all the things that come with entrepreneurship. And I don't do that perfectly, but trying to balance those two things. And when I make a positive impact and I still get to have time for my hobbies and my health and fitness and my family, that feels like success.
I absolutely love it. Michelle, I want to thank you so much for joining me. Everyone, please get her new book, The Flipside, How to Invert Your Perspective and Turn Fear into Your Superpower, which is available now wherever books is sold. And there's this little place on the internet called Amazon. You could get it there. We will link it up there. Michelle, I want to thank you so much for joining me. Where else could folks follow you? Where could they connect? Where could they learn more?
Yeah, I'm very easy to find on the internet. Mace-Corinne.com is my website. So call sign last name. Mace_Curran is my Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn, Michelle Mace-Curran. And I create quite a bit of content around these kind of ideas. So that's the best spot.
And you guys get over to thepozcast.com. We're going to link up everything in this episode, all of Michelle's links. Michelle, I want to thank you so much for joining me here. Folks, if this episode meant something to you, if it landed, leave a review, a rating. It goes a long way. You know how to find out more at thepozcast.com. Follow us on all the social media channels. This show will be up on YouTube, which I'm trying to get moving in a good direction. YouTube.com/thepozcast. Subscribe, comment, like, and network. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.